should be going live here in a second.
How about no?
Herbert, no. Yep, we're live.
Oh man, we're live? I don't want to be live.
Why are you sitting here?
Oh, alright.
Oh, when you put it that way.
Well, I guess I should have live.
I guess I could be live. Alright, hey everybody, we're live here on Twitch.
The openings to these videos are always the best. It's always like, oh, why are we doing this? Hey, look, it's on. We should greet them.
Yeah, like we're really inspiring confidence that we want to be here. Oh man, I gotta do this again.
Hello, fellow post live listeners.
We are live on Twitch, and today we're going to be...
People in the future.
Pretty much, yeah.
Today we're going to be talking about Kubo and the Two Strings. Came out last year.
2 years ago.
2 years ago. Wow, my time flies. But we don't get too many of those stop-motion animation films. Like,
nope.
You've got the guy that directed Nightmare Before Christmas. You know, he also did Coraline and I think James and the Giant Peach.
Yeah, those are all like Tim Burton movies.
Well, it was Tim Burton produced them. It was a different director, though.
Oh. Well, I know the guys that did Coraline's the same studio that did Kubo.
Yeah, but is it the same director, though?
No. Travis
Oh, no,
Knight.
he did Box Trolls and Paranorman. That's what he did.
Which one?
The guy that directed Kubo.
Oh, okay.
He also he was in he's only directed two things. He was on the animation department. Sorry. He directed Kubo, and he's directing the Bumblebee movie.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're good at stop animation direction. You will direct Bumblebee. It's like kind of the same thing.
I mean, I would watch a stop-motion Bumblebee movie.
Oh,
Yeah.
I would in a heartbeat. I'd be like, this is probably gonna suck.
I would only watch it if Seth Green did it like Robot Chicken.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But Travis Knight, he directed it, and one of the things I wrote a note down that I didn't catch the first time I saw it, or maybe I did, but I just forgot about it, was in the beginning when Kubo's doing the story in the town, you know, and that old lady that I like, she wanted the fire-breathing chicken.
Yep.
And so the soldier, the knight, samurai, runs by and cuts the fire-breathing chicken's head off. And then you have the old guy who's voiced by George Takei, and he's like, oh my. And I was like, yeah, they snuck in a George Takei joke.
Well, what's crazy is, like, he's hardly in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Well, what's also crazy is, guess who's the other old dude in that same scene? Shang Tsung.
That's true.
Yeah, we got, the
Well,
Soul Taker.
whenever you need an old Asian guy, he's like the go-to.
Yeah, you got him and Takai.
Because they've got powerful voices. They both have that stage actor voice where they can project themselves, you know, like Ian McKellen or Patrick Stewart. You know, a lot of those older, like stage theatrical guys, they project their voice really far. And those guys have that voice. And it's always great when you have an actor like that.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things I thought was funny during this movie is you could tell easily who got it and who didn't. Because it's called Kubo and the Two Strings, but the guitar has 3 strings. And so people are like, I don't get it. Why is it 2 strings? Like, come on, man. It's like a string from his mom of hair, string from the monkey, you know, put them together with a third
And you do the
string.
hokey pokey.
Yeah. Like the guitar has 2 strings, but the 3 strings, but the 2 strings come from
Well, yeah, but he didn't put the final third string until the end.
Right.
Yeah, I felt like that happened pretty quick though. Once he put on the other two, but I was one of those people who was like, okay, like from the opening scenes, like, oh, the mom has it. Oh, there's 3 strings. Oh, now he has it. And I was like, is he gonna break a string? Nope.
No.
I will say, that was like one thing I've never paid attention about in the movie is like the guitar and the strings, because I'm just so blown away by, in the age of like a lot of kid movies or animated movies are, lighter hearted. There's not as much violence, and so going into this movie, I was like, okay, this ain't by any big studio. It looks cool. Let's see what happens. And there's violence left and right in this movie, and the entire plot is some old dude trying to take some kid's eye out. I'm like, that's unique.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you just don't see that anymore. And so I'm always captivated by that. Plus, one of my favorite parts is the 2 fight scenes. Especially that first fight scene on the boat with the sister. It's so anime-like. I just love it.
Yeah, and the dragon scene at the end with the grandfather. Some of the action sequences were directed better than a lot of live action movies.
Yeah.
And it's more difficult to do it in a stop animation.
Because you got to do it 24 frames per second.
And
I hope someone wasn't like, what if we do it 60 frames to do it for slow motion? I bet someone's like, and shut up.
No, I like the look of the stop animation. It's an art form I think is dying. But there's another one. Well, Wes Anderson has one coming out this year with the Isle of Dogs.
Yeah, Isle of the Dogs, yeah.
But I would like to, and those are okay, but I would like to see more of like Kubo or James and the Giant Peach, Nightmare Before Christmas. I like those kind. And there's a unique style that you can't get in any other kind of animation where it doesn't look totally smooth, but it looks smooth enough. Like you can tell it's stop animation. It's not perfect. But I like that. I like that it's not perfect.
Yeah, that's you can definitely tell like there's a couple of parts that, anytime like there's really sudden movements, it's like I don't think that's how gravity completely works, because it's like a slow hit back onto a boat or someone falling. It's like, okay, I don't know if that's exactly how to work. But I mean, I'm like you. It doesn't bother me at all. I actually enjoy it because
I see it like an art style. It's just an art style. But then there's other scenes where they're very simple if you just look at it. But when you know it's stop animation, you're like, how the hell did they do that?
Yeah.
Just in the beginning, there's 2 guys, there's no dialogue. There's 2 guys staring at each other over a bowl and they're playing dice. And you have one guy, he's fanning himself with the fan and you can see his hair move a little bit. And then the other guy drops a coin and you see from above the coin drop into the bowl and roll around. And you're like, okay, in live action, that would be fine. You just drop the coin a couple of times until you get the motion you want. But in stop animation, they've got to frame the coin falling. And then they've got to perfectly animate it rotating around until it falls. I mean, that's just that one sequence of like 2 or 3 seconds would take forever.
No, it's amazing. And there's so many things visually in this movie that looks very hard. I mean, even the opening scene is like this crazy river. And it's like, how the hell did they do that even?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here where I was just amazed by the look of things. Like, especially with hair movements. Like his hair, the monkey's hair, all of that looked really
hair.
great. Yeah, the mom's hair.
So part of the reason why we're doing this movie is because, of course, Ian was like, well, we need to watch this, or I need to watch this so Matt can shut up about it. So, Ian, what are some of your thoughts about the movie?
I mean, going off like the cool things, like when I was reading up on the production, the like skeleton monster that they face was like they built a 16-foot like robotic, puppet in order to make that work, because they weren't getting the results they wanted out of like just doing sections of it. So I thought that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, that goes along with a lot of stuff we say even about regular movies, is practical always looks better than CGI or close-ups. And so building what, I guess the term was coined during Lord of the Rings when they call them bigatures instead of miniatures, because they're gigantic miniatures. So it's a bigature. But yeah, I mean, you can't really think of a 16-foot skeleton as a miniature. You know what I mean?
No.
I mean, that's huge. But on the screen, you really feel that scale. You can see that scale.
That sequence I really like it. I like kind of the build up to it, because you see all these bones on the ground. I guess you're supposed to assume that those are like fallen foes or something. And it reminds me of a Dark Souls boss. You pick up the sword, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, the boss is in the shadows, and now you have to fight this, and you have to use the sword against it. It has those elements, but I really like it because I'm like, I'm pretty sure these guys played some Dark Souls. Just a little bit.
It very much is like a video game boss.
Yeah.
Even down to trying to get the sword out of its head. It's very much of a video game boss.
The sword unfindable.
And unbreakable.
Oh, I thought it was the sword that. Which part is it? The hilt or the?
Yeah, is it the hilt? The sword is very breakable. Maybe it's the hilt.
My favorite one was the sword uncomfortable.
Yeah, when he's sleeping on it.
I really liked Matthew McConaughey as the voice. When I first heard that he was going to be in it, I was like, okay. But he's got a very kind of southern drawl to his normal voice. So I was like, how is he going to play a Japanese samurai beetle character? But he pulls it off very well.
I mean, it's kind of everyone in this movie. I mean, you have Charlize Theron, you have Ralph Fiennes, you have, I don't know the kid, but Art Parkinson.
Yeah, Art Parkinson.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird how the entire main cast, and I'm not going to talk too much about it because it is it is a movie made in the West, inspired by Eastern culture. So I'm totally fine with it because they do it over there too. But like everyone is white except the smaller cast. Like George Takei and Shang Shun, Carrie, I can't pronounce his last name, but at first I was like, well, that's kind of weird that none of these characters are Asian, but I mean, they do that a lot over there as well. There's a movie called like The Good, the Bad, The Good, the Bad, the Weird or something. It's an Asian movie. It's like a parody or homage to The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, and it's an entire Asian cast in the West. Makes absolutely no sense, but
it's hilarious though.
Yeah, and like it's fine. It is 4 characters. I honestly don't know who they'd pick over here to sell to us, because it was, this movie is obviously for an American audience in terms of the cast that they have, because Charlize Theron, of course, has had like an amazing couple-year run. I mean, she was in this. She starred in Atomic Blonde and Fast and the Furious. I was about to say Maze Runner. Gosh. What the
Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah, Mad Max. It's the other M.
Yeah.
But yeah, and Matthew McConaughey had True Detectives recently, so they both have been fairly successful recently. So I'm shocked that they got as star-studded of a cast as they did.
Well, Matthew McConaughey was a standout for me because his character was my favorite. I really liked the Beetle. I liked the humor. You know, he reminded me of like the Tick.
Oh yeah.
But also, you know, the whole movie goes along with like a Wizard of Oz storyline. So it's got elements that make it different, obviously, but for the core of the story, it's fairly simple. You have a Wizard of Oz kind of storyline, and then you add some other things to spicing it up with the, you know, the mysticism and the family, the fact that that's his parents kind of thing, and the grandfather, but it's still a travel movie where you collect friends along the way.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it's very much a fairy tale, but I think it's got enough of like different elements from what you're used to seeing in like a Western movie, so it's still very like fresh and unique.
Yeah, and it felt like a mythology, like a, you know, a story that you would tell, a fable. And so it worked very well because it has the same structure.
See, I think for me, in terms of standout performances, I would go with Ralph Fiennes. I really liked him as the grandfather because he has a little Voldemort. Like, there's that one line that really speaks out to me.
I can touch you, Kubo.
Yeah, pretty much, where he's like, infinite. And I'm like, and you're Voldemort. but then like he switches it off. And I mean, part of it is I love Ralph Fiennes. Like, I've obviously ever since, you know, when I was younger watching Harry Potter, and then as I got older watching stuff like Quiz Show and In Bruges, like, okay, this guy's just amazing. But yeah,
Have you seen him in Red Dragon?
No, I have not.
We're gonna have to do that one of these weeks.
I also haven't seen Skyfall.
You haven't seen Skyfall?
Nope, nope. But I have heard the theme song a million times because my roommate kept singing it.
Well, it won an Oscar, Matt, so.
But going back to Kubo, I liked the some of the epicness. You know how in all fables and mythologies you have the moment where the hero gets elevated. They have like a breaking point where they snap into their greatness. You know, either they realize something or they gain some kind of power. But when Monkey dies, and you can see that anger in his face, and he plays the guitar for the first time afterwards, stringing it up, and like it lifts him in the air with all the paper and it goes around him. That was a great, like, you know, almost give me goosebumps kind of sequence. I really enjoyed that one. And when he gets all of the armor right before he fights the grandfather.
Obviously, I think some of the visuals, I love how they still tell you that like some character is defeated or something is happening without actually just showing it all. Because like the movie's violent, but it doesn't go all the way on everything. Because, right, you know, when Charlize Theron's character, the monkey, slices, you know, at the sister, and it cuts to the mask split in half. And it's like, and if they showed that her face would have been cut in half. It's like, I don't know if I'm ready to see that.
Or like when the little like origami samurai guy gets like beat down and he starts falling apart, then it's like, I'm glad we didn't see what actually happened, but this is pretty meaningful.
Yeah, they were able to show things a little bit more violent than most cartoons or animated things, just because many of the objects in there were made of paper or leaves or something else that, you know, is obvious. So if it gets, you know, destroyed or hurt, you feel a little bit for the character, but it's not to the extreme of like an actual living being, you know.
I mean, you do get to see a sword thrusted into someone. which I totally forgot that happened. I was like, oh, I knew he died, but I was like, oh, you actually see it go all the way through him.
Yeah.
That's insane. And I love how Kubo's just like a straight up murderer now. Like he killed that sister. It's just like, and he's an 8-year-old murderer now. But a self-defense.
Well,
Also,
when he talks to his grandfather at the end, he's like, I'm going to kill you. Like, he's very, like, there's no gray area in there. He's basically saying, I'm going to kill you until the end.
if I was 8 years old, I guess I would be that way. You know, losing my eye to my grandfather and seeing my mom die twice, and then seeing my father, who doesn't know that he's my dad, and then dies at the end. I'm pretty sure I'd be like, okay, this guy needs to die or something.
Yeah,
like,
I need a little bit of revenge.
Yeah. Which, once again, we do not see that a lot in Disney movies.
No.
Or just animated movies anymore. There's most animated movies never even have this much action in it. I mean, I enjoy the action. I mean, I've said it before, but the action set pieces I really like, especially the one on the boat, like the little sequence where she has the Kurosagawa, I think that's how you pronounce it. And I'm pretty sure I butchered it, so someone will let me know. But where the sister's using the Kurosagawa against, the sword. It's a really interesting sequence, one, because, a lot of times you can't see that in a live-action movie. It's really hard to choreograph something with a long range like that and look like it's flowing really well or naturally and not CG. Or this, because, it is puppets and they are physical objects. You can actually see them choreograph it and make it look, smooth. And plus, there's actual violence and stakes. Like, she gets cut up at the very beginning with the Kurosagawa when she flips it at the monkey, and then obviously cutting her sister in half, which I loved.
Well, and that's the thing about some of these stop animation films is they do have a much darker tone than the traditional animated movie. Nightmare Before Christmas, Kubo, of course, Coraline. Even James and the Giant Peach, like a lot of these have much darker themes.
Frankenweenie,
Paranorman, like they all have darker themes to them. Not violence in the way of grotesque, but violence in more realistic, I guess you would say, than a regular animated film.
Yeah.
Like, I'm wondering what other kinds of stories they could tell in stop animation that would, if you think about some of the Disney movies, they could take it a little farther. Like Lion King, the death with the stampede would be a little bit more violent in stop animation.
I mean, I will say even stuff like that back in the 90s with Disney, like some of that stuff, like Lion King is a fairly dark movie for a kid movie, and just in I'd probably say after Tarzan and Mulan, that's definitely changed. Your villains don't get strangled to death by ropes and see this hand twitching and then stopping. It's like, okay, we don't even see that half the time in rated R movies sometimes. And yet it's just like kids just want this. What happens when someone gets strangled to death?
I wonder if that switched after the Treasure Planet and Atlantis, movies kind of came out, because Atlantis is there's a lot of people dying in that movie.
Yeah.
And a lot of things blowing up. So.
See, and I miss those movies. I love Atlantis. I thought that was a great movie.
Well, I know in the 90s, part of the reason why they were going darker was because the success Warner Brothers was having with stuff like Batman, the animated series. And so, obviously, Disney was like, okay, we're gonna try to do the same thing with Gargoyles, and they, kept fighting back and forth. So maybe it could have been a thing that, in the 2000s, that just wasn't the thing, that things that were more successful were a lighter tone. But even still, like, where they weren't maybe dark, some of them were very emotional even in the 2000s. Obviously, stuff like Finding Nemo, where the first opening 5 minutes is like, oh, main characters lost their mom and like all their relatives or all their their kids except one. And Up, obviously, the classic first 5 minutes where I'm pretty sure like everyone is either cried or about ready cried.
Well, with Disney in the 90s, I guess they could have been influenced by some of the Warner Brother cartoons, but if you look at it from their time scale, the 90s cartoons were actually toned down from where they were in the 80s. The Disney cartoons in the 80s were really dark. Especially, you look at like we talked about, the Black Cauldron, but also the Great Mouse Detective. There were a lot of really dark movies in the 80s. The ones in the 90s are really light in comparison.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that. I guess more so Disney was trying to change their game up in their television, because their television, I think, is much darker in the 90s than their movies. I think the only one that is actually really dark in the 90s was Lion King. Did Tarzan hit in the 90s? Was that late 90s or early 2000s?
I think that was late 90s.
I feel like The Hunchback of Notre Dame's pretty dark too.
Yeah, Beauty and the Beast, I think has. Yeah, Beauty and the Beast as well, I think, has like parts that are dark. But I think once you get to like Hercules and stuff, and even Aladdin, it's fairly friendly, kid friendly.
But yeah, like what Ian had said, which one did you just name?
Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Yeah, Hunchback and Little Mermaid, they had some much darker themes. Especially with the endings. Like the endings of those movies, Lion King, Hunchback, Little Mermaid, all up until about Hercules, I think, was probably like one of the big turnarounds. Hercules was much more of a cartoon, in my opinion, than an animated film. The other ones felt like animated features. Hercules felt like a really long, goofy cartoon.
I will say,
which I didn't mind. I liked it. Do what?
Thank God for Hades.
Yeah. James Woods made that movie.
I'm pretty sure if he was not in that movie would be nowhere near as good.
Now, one thing I guess I would have a negative about Kubo is our villain isn't in it much, and so you don't have an emotional, like you're emotionally involved with the main characters, the three main characters, but you don't feel the danger from the villain as much as I would like. Like I had mentioned, Wizard of Oz. With the Wicked Witch, she popped up enough times that you felt threatened by her. I didn't feel that with the grandfather. Like, he was more of just talked about, but I didn't feel like his presence was that threatening until he turned into a dragon, and then it just became more of a creature than it was a person.
I mean, for me, I don't think he's supposed to be the main threat throughout the movie, like, because it's all, at the very beginning you see the sisters, and so those are kind of like the two big baddies that we have to take out along the journey, and so those are the things that are going to be, the threat. Which there's an amazing visual when that storm rolls up and you see the Kurosawa like hit the little piece of clothing, and like the fog rolls up right under them, and they're flying like anime characters, like one toes pointing, almost touching the water, and they're like swooping by. I'm pretty sure I've seen that in an episode of Dragon Ball Z or two. But I am, my mind, it's not about the main villain, like feeling the threat from him, more so just feeling the threat from the family. And that's my take on that. Ian?
I mean, I felt I felt like an existential threat from the grandfather character because the mom was so concerned about it, earlier on. And then once the sisters show up to attack Kubo, then you're kind of like, okay, he is a big deal. I do feel like that he's in like a more traditional like animated movie, he would have been a bigger threat. But I think the way that they handle his character, like even in the end of this movie, is very different than what you would see, in your typical animated film. I feel like there's a lot more like the film has a lot more sophistication as far as its themes are concerned. I think that's the way I would put it, because like we talked about like how dark movies are, but I feel like there are like Disney movies, like I feel like Zootopia is pretty thematically advanced, and like Inside Out's pretty, deep. But I feel like this movie really like challenges some of like what you typically think of from an animated movie.
Well, for like this movie, the grandfather is kind of like the Emperor in Star Wars.
Or
he's not.
I would say more like Sauron.
But he's not there.
Yeah.
Well, I would say more like the Emperor, just because he's got a scene at the end. Sauron doesn't do anything.
You're always right.
Sauron doesn't do anything. He's just an eyeball in a thing, and then he falls over. But he doesn't have a battle.
The grandfather only had one eye as well.
But he's more of like the Emperor in the fact that they talk about him, but he doesn't really do anything until the end. And the sisters would be more like Darth Vader in that you see them a lot more, and they're supposed to be the immediate threat. But he still didn't have... I guess they may not have talked him up enough to where when he showed up, I didn't feel the threat. When the Emperor showed up in Star Wars, I felt his threat immediately. But I didn't feel that threat with the grandfather. And then when they fought, it wasn't the grandfather fighting, it was a dragon. So I felt more threat from the dragon creature than I did the grandfather.
I mean, I will agree upon that. The grandfather, when you see him, he literally just looks like a grandfather. Where the two sisters are in this crazy like crow, robe, and every time they fly, they zoom up like a crow. They have kind of like that plague doctor look to them.
Well, and they got those masks on that look human but don't have any expression. It's very creepy. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
when
you finally see the grandfather, it's just, it's just a dude.
I mean, he does crush that rock when he's looking like a ghost.
I mean, I also will say that, he does like just walk right into the sword unbroken, which leads me to wonder, I don't think any of that can actually harm him. Because he literally walked into that sword. I'm like, okay, this thing is supposed to be insanely sharp. Yeah, he just went chest first into that sword. Like, what are you going to do?
Well, and that's why he didn't beat him with the sword. He beat them with the memories of all of those that came before. But
I was happy that they didn't just keep with like the weapons or what's going to defeat him, because I was kind of concerned about that.
Yeah, I like the way it ended, and it was very kind of poetic along with what happened to the parents. The father's memory was taken away and he became this beetle guy, and then the mother got kind of transformed after death into the monkey. And so the grandfather was turned, he's basically had his memory wiped and they gave him a new life. Like, it poetically makes sense along with the others. If you just slaughtered him, then it would feel a little two-dimensional, like it wouldn't fit in the story, I think.
Then literally the entire family would be wiped out except him. It's like, well, looks like our heir's gone almost.
Clean slate.
Man, there was so much death. Half the cast died in this movie. They did not want to make a sequel. They're like, we need to guarantee that Kubo and the Two Strings won't become Kubo and the Two Strings, the final string.
Yeah.
Or Kubo and the One String.
Oh.
I was wondering if they were going to do something because, like, the armor is all, like, gold, and then later on you see, like, the sun symbol, but they didn't do anything with that, I didn't think, except for, like, it kind of glows a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I was wondering, since he's, like, the sun and Grandpa's, like, the moon, maybe they do something with that. But, I mean, they are very different. But.
So speaking of the armor pieces, finding them, I was very confused. I have been confused about this every time. Maybe I'm stupid. Koricon will probably say yes. But so they go to find the third and final piece. And the thing that triggers Monkey to figure out it's a trap is a picture of the headpiece. I don't understand.
Yeah, I was a bit confused at that also, and I was trying to figure out what it was about that scroll.
Oh, wait. Now it makes sense. Because she knew the headpiece. This should have been more explained, but now I just realized. She knew that the headpiece was in that town that she stayed at because later on, Grandfather's like, oh, now it makes sense why she brought you to this, crappy area was because the headpiece was always there. And so seeing the map or the picture of it, made her either realize that it's not here because I know exactly where it's at, or B, it's a map to where the headpiece is. And she thinks, okay, it doesn't make any sense. Why would they have a map to the headpiece when the headpiece is supposed to be here?
She's basically realizing the headpiece is not here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also wondered if it was something like because they don't really explain like what happened to her right before the beginning. Because then it could be like she remembers that why she went to the village was like that was where the helmet was. Because there is that later picture that Kubo sees where he's like, on top of the thing is where the helmet is. And they've been ringing it like a bell this whole time. He's like, I gotta go back.
Right.
I just wish that piece, that part where she realizes it's a trap was a little bit more elaborate. Just so that, I think as an audience member, I want to also be it's a trap and not, how did she figure this out?
Well, they've done this in other movies, and a lot of times I don't like it, where a character realizes something and then they show a quick backflash of what it is that they're referencing in that character's mind. A lot of times that you should be able to pick up on a second viewing, or it's a little bit more obvious in the foreshadowing. With this one, I think it would have been good to have just a quick flash of seeing the helmet in the town. And then that was her realizing it's not here. And then she knows it's a trap. Just something very quick, a little...
Yeah, they could even done something along the lines of where we as an audience member saw the headpiece in the beginning and we're like, oh, what is that? It's just some random thing that has nothing to do with the story, most likely. And then later on, she sees that and we go, oh, shoot, that's the headpiece.
Right. Yeah, just something, a little quick flash so that we are in on what the character was thinking at that moment.
I will say, Beetle's throw, that sword throw to the witch sister 2, I'm going to call her, that was pretty amazing because I'm just like, everyone's just chopping each other, throwing swords, stabbing each other. What is this movie? Like, you gotta, I mean, that is one thing that I have to admit, like, even in something like Batman: A Massive Phantasm, they don't even get this like violent. There's not many like animated movies that get this violent where you're just seeing the swords, even if you don't see it, it's happening, of people getting cut in half, stabbed through, launching swords from half of a football field into people, ripping eyes out. It's like, are we watching anime? Is this, Roni Kenshin or Attack on Titan? Is there Titan's going to show up and eat someone? Like, what is going?
Well, it's a very Hitchcockian way of directing, where you allude to the violence, but you don't show it. Mm-hmm. And it works very well. I mean, you can still make it a kid's movie or a kid's show, and it's not violent, but it infers it. And
we're also even shooting eyeballs out.
What?
We're also shooting eyeballs out.
Yeah, but they don't.
Like the scene with the tentacles. Like he's literally shooting the eyeballs out, and there's blood.
It's a creature. It's not a.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with why Grandpa turned into a dragon. You can cut him as a dragon, and it doesn't affect a child as much as if he was like cutting a human form of his grandfather. You have to kind of make them a monster in a way.
Also, I feel like that fight would be kind of unepic, going from two, witch plague doctors to Ray Fiennes in robe.
Yeah. But I think so let's go over what our standouts are. My standout was Matthew McConaughey because he was a multi-layered character. He had humor, he had awesome moments, and some at the same time. Like when you first meet him and he shoots the arrow in the wall and Monkey's like, that's not very impressive. And then he fires more and they go right in the same spot. But then he quickly, right after that, says, "Whoa, that's the first time I've ever done that." It's like he does something cool. He's very relatable, but he's funny as well. Like he feels like a father character. Someone that is very protective. You feel safe around him, but he's also fun and jokes around with the kid. And I thought McConaughey did a much better job than I thought he was going to do. And I think it's because I haven't heard him do very much voice work. And so I couldn't really see it. I mean, he did the animated movie Sing, but that was after this. Mm-hmm. And Sing really surprised me as well. When I saw the trailers, I was like, I don't want to watch a stupid American Idol, reality show turned into a cartoon. But they didn't do that, and it was a very good movie. I was surprised by it. And McConaughey surprised me in this. I wasn't sure that he would be able to pull off a voice character, and he did a good. I want to hear him do more voice work. I think he could do a good job. So, what are your guys' standouts for you in the movie?
Ian?
For me, I think the character of Kubo was probably my favorite and probably the most, my standout, I guess. I liked that they gave him, magical powers, but they didn't use traditional ones. I liked the fact that he was a storyteller, that he used the origami to, tell stories, but also it was a part of, his magic that he used throughout the film. And I thought that the opening was particularly strong with him, helping out his mom and doing things like that. I thought that his journey was just really interesting to go on with him.
Yeah, and I agree. It was a really different and interesting kind of magical power. You've seen music powers before, like in, even the Legend of Zelda games. But you don't see it very much in big budget animation films. Of using music as your weapon.
But the greatest musical power of all is the White Ranger summoning his dragon, or the Green Ranger.
No.
And playing his magical flute dagger, I think. I don't know. Who cares?
I'm too old for Power Rangers.
I was too old, too, and I was 1 when it came out.
I was 15 when it came out. I remember seeing the first half of the first show, and I was like, this is the dumbest shit I've ever seen.
You got that far? I am so sorry.
Yeah, that's all I watched. But I understand if you were 6 or 7 when it came out, you would love it. I mean, there's a lot of stupid stuff that I loved when I was that age. I mean, if you watch Knight Rider now, it's a bad show. But I loved it when I was a kid. So I understand the whole Power Rangers reference. I'm just going to roll my eyes anyway.
Well, I mean, it's not like I like the show.
Whatever.
I enjoyed Beetleborgs.
We are
more.
now going to call you Matt, the Power Ranger fan.
This is a very lame-sounding nickname, but...
From the director of Batman Master of Fear, Matt, the Power Ranger fan.
That does not have a ring, but whatever.
So what was your standout, Matt?
I will actually say, I think Art Parkinson. Yeah. I think he shockingly was really good. Mainly because most movies with kids as main actors, I cringe or cannot take serious at all, or go through the entire movie. Good examples. I think sometimes even Macaulay Culkin gets annoying in Home Alone 1 or 2, particularly in 2. The kid in Gotham is annoying as Bruce Wayne. Like, I can't tolerate him at all. I mean, there's a bunch of kids where I'm just like, and if the kid was out of this movie, it would have been a lot better.
I'm looking at his filmography. I totally forgot. He was in Game of Thrones. He plays Rickon Stark. I didn't realize that.
Wait, who's that?
He's one of the younger of the Stark brothers.
Bran's younger brother.
Yeah. It's the youngest brother.
Wait, which one's the crippled?
Bran.
That's Bran.
Which one is the cripple?
We'd like to apologize to anyone we
just offended half of the internet.
Well, we've offended Power Rangers fans. We've offended.
That's true. We do like to eliminate audience members.
Well, I mean, last week apparently Koricon here had to go right after me. We apologize for Matt for not liking Tomb Raider. It's like, what? Come on, man. Really sucked.
Yeah, that's the beauty of these discussions. We don't all always
I get
agree.
to bash movies, and we allow someone to like it. Therefore, it doesn't look like I just.
Well, if it's just a discussion of people fanboying over stuff, that gets boring. You got to have a difference of opinion, even if you're wrong.
Yes, you are wrong. But yeah, I think he did. I think he did really good, and honestly, I don't think anyone did bad. There's no one in the cast where I'm like, they did terrible. I like Charlize Theron. I mean, I love Charlize Theron on a lot of stuff. I went to go see Atomic Blonde, which I was ashamed that I did, but I wanted. I liked her enough to want to go see that movie. And I liked Ray Fiennes a lot. I think he did good. I also actually liked the sisters. I mean, they're creepy.
Yeah. They were creepy in a very good way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought they were very well done.
And Matthew McConaughey, I think the beauty of this movie is it's a 2-hour movie, or less than a 2-hour movie. There's like 5 characters, and yet the story keeps moving. We just focus on 5 characters. It's not this giant movie that, if he loses his eye, it's the end of the world. Or, we don't know what does the Moon King do? What else does he do outside of this? We don't know. Who else is on this world? We don't know. We see like a total of like 20 people in this movie. And I love it. It's kind of nice seeing a movie that doesn't have to do about this giant world.
Yeah, we have too many movies that come out where the stakes have to be insanely high, like the world is going to end. Kind of thing. And after a while, that becomes played out, where you're like, I guess the world's going to end again. you need more smaller personal stories, and this one has a smaller kind of personal story to it. And I think it elevates the emotional level of the film when you feel connected to a personal story, has more of an impact than if you think the world is going to end. It's just too big and your brain doesn't really process that immensity as easily as a story between, a grandson and a grandfather and aunts, like a very personal interfamily tragedy in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Has much more of an emotional impact. Just like in Up, the scene that the opening sequence, it's just two people growing old, and hugely impactful, no dialogue whatsoever, but it's just
it gets everyone.
Yeah, it's just a very nice little interpersonal story. There's no planet ending, amazing Iron Man's going to stop the universe from exploding kind of thing, even though I kind of like those as well. But the impact is greater if you can make it more personal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I hope this guy, the director, Travis Knight, I hope he continues doing more animated movies, because besides Bumblebee, let's do something else. But
it might not even be him. Even it could just be, I want to see the studio do more, because
I think it says that he's the president and CEO of Leica.
Oh, and they did Coraline, and if I remember right, every single article of clothing in Coraline was hand knit, and of course it's 3 inches or whatever, those clothing pieces for those dolls. So that's some insane hand knitting that they're doing.
Well, it says that Travis Knight's father is, I think he's the co-founder of Nike.
Nike?
So, yes.
Oh, man, that's why he's got some money.
So that makes sense.
Now we are going to get some more stop animation from the director of Nightmare Before Christmas, James and the Giant Peach, and Coraline. That's Henry Selick. And he's working on right now Wendell and Wild, which is in post-production. And it looks like he's also going to be working on a TV series called Little Nightmares. I wonder if it looks like it might be a stop animation. I mean,
That'd
from
be
the
cool to see.
they have a poster. Little Nightmares follows the adventures of a 9-year-old girl named Six who is trapped at the bottom of a terrifying ship. It looks very dark. I'm liking it. But yeah, so we are going to get some more stop animation stuff. It just seems like you're getting one every 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to see more, but I will also say that it is really hard to make. And right now, patience is not something Hollywood has right now.
Yeah, and, it's nice to have something special. If you came out with one every year, people would just expect one every year. And it just doesn't have the same level of if you had just one every 3 to 5 years. But it would be nice to have one every 3 years instead of 5, just to get one a little bit more regular with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think 3 years is a good amount of time. A lot of movies that have multiple sequels, the ones that do 3-year gaps usually are a little better because you're ready for the next movie. But when you have one coming out every year, it kind of loses some of that anticipation.
Yep.
So, 5 years is fine, but I would like to see one every 3 years. Maybe get Selick and Knight and the other guy that worked on some of the other movies, but get
It made Tim Burton with Frankenweenie and stuff.
Well, he didn't direct that. He didn't direct any of them. He worked with the story and the production.
How did he do?
Well,
His name is on all these.
Well, he was a producer, and with Nightmare Before Christmas, he did a lot of the design work. When he was working at Disney as an animator, he drew a lot of pictures of these kind of characters. And then when he left Disney, that's what he handed over and wanted to make a movie out of it. So it was his visual style. It was the characters that he drew and that he came up with, but it was really Selick that made it come to life. It's a special kind of director to be able to direct an stop motion. It's not something Tim Burton would be able to do. He's not that kind of, he doesn't have that kind of specialization. But, it could go the other way. Henry Selick and these stop motion directors could direct a regular film. It's just trying to become a stop motion animating director would be very difficult if you're not predisposed to it.
I don't understand how Travis Knight got the job for Bumblebee, but
I don't know.
That's Hasbro for you. They don't know either.
Well, they probably saw Kubo and was like, "That's a good movie. Let's give him Bumblebee." I mean, that's kind of how the studios think. Like they don't really consider like styles and genres. They're more of like, he did good with this movie.
I bet he could do Bumblebee.
And he was probably, not as expensive as other directors.
That movie is gonna tank. What are they gonna do in that movie?
Actually,
gonna fight.
Since Michael Bay is not directing it, I want Bumblebee to be the best out of all of them. Just so that they can end on a high note, and it proves to everybody that Michael Bay is what's making the Transformer movies bad.
I mean, that would be cool. But if it succeeds, that means we'd get more.
No, I think their next... they've already been planning a reboot of Transformers, a totally different direction with different directors.
Peter Cullen. Okay.
Michael Bay wouldn't be involved.
But Peter Cullen is Optimus Prime, of course. So how much of a reboot is it?
Well, you can't lose that voice. If you had to change the voice actor for that, you would bring in John Bailey, since he does the voice of Optimus Prime in one of the most recent cartoons. And he's the epic voice guy.
I mean, I'm pretty sure they would just... use a soundboard of Peter Cullen because he only says like 10 different lines. Earth is in danger because of the Decepticons. Autobots, roll out.
Yeah, they could just take clips from all of the other shows and stuff, and because he says basically the same thing.
I will say though that although he says some of the same things, that epic line, "One shall stand, one shall fall." He says it like in every show now. It's like his catchphrase, like, "I'll be back." Like, it's like, gosh, like Peter Cullen's still saying this in like 2013 with Transformers Prime.
So what kind of fable or myth stories would you like to see turned into a stop motion animation movie? Besides an original story like Kubo was, but I mean just fables and... Like, I would like to see some of the Grimm tales turned into a stop animation. I think those, like actual Grimm tales, not the Disney version, but like taken straight from the Grimm tales.
I mean, these aren't fairy tales, but I would like to see something like the King in Yellow.
The what?
King in Yellow, H.P. Lovecraft story.
Oh.
It's about where if you see all three acts of a play, you'll die.
Interesting.
It's a really cool story.
That seems pretty dark.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, but I think that could be fun. I think you could make it, a little bit lighter for kids, and I think you could do some pretty interesting visuals with the play.
Well, which H.P. Lovecraft, Cthulhu would look awesome in stop animation.
Oh gosh, yeah.
That
like
would look awesome.
You're like a 20-foot.
But I think that he would look great as stop animation. I think better than a CGI animated movie.
Or we can go the ultimate route, like the original Clash of the Titans, and claymation him. Because the Kraken kind of... It's made of clay. That's all I'll say.
Well, they think the original movie with stop animation was better than the CGI fest that we got a few years back. You know,
Yeah.
And that was during the heyday of some of the original stop animators with Ray Harryhausen and stuff like that. So,
Well, yeah, because I remember the Kraken, like how they designed the Kraken for the stop animation was based off of how they did the animation for King Kong in the 1933 movie.
Yeah.
yep. Same with the skeletons.
Yep.
So, what do you think, Ian? Any kind of fable or story pops out at you that would be good for stop animation?
I don't know. Matt will tell you that I really like mythic stories. So, like, if the category is myths and legends, I'm pretty much open to anything.
Yes, he is. He is the Tolkien expert, and that's his tagline: Ian Blaylock, Tolkien expert.
It would be cool to see some of like the Viking mythologies.
I mean, a God of War movie would be amazing. Stop
Hey,
animation.
Beowulf, an actual
Oh, that'd be cool.
good Beowulf would be a good one, but it would have to be more than one movie. I think Beowulf should be told into 2 movies, but get a stop animation for that would be epic, especially when you see what was the monster? Is that the Golem or something?
Grendel.
Grendel. Thank you. Yeah, when you see Grendel, I think Grendel would look awesome as stop animation.
Or we could get a second Team America World Police.
With marionettes,
Yep.
that's not stop animation though.
But look, I mean, it looks so flawless. Wasn't it?
You know, if you ask Matt and Trey, after the movie came out, they said, we didn't know it was going to be that hard when we started it. And they asked if you would make another one, and they're like, hell no. Never,
Wow.
never again. He's like, I will never do that again. It's difficult to do the marionette stuff. I think stop animation, it wouldn't be easier time-wise, but you would have a lot more control.
You just have to have like the most patience ever. It's like building a model 24 frames a second. I mean, the movie is an hour and 40 minutes, and so I'm not even going to do the math, but that's a lot of shots.
Well, I would love to see a behind the scenes of it. I'm sure they have some.
Yeah, that was how I got introduced to the movie, was behind the scenes, and I was just blown away on what they were doing.
Because they have to keep track of so many things that are moving in frame. You know, a piece of hair, the way the head moves, a finger, a sword, piece of clothing. Like, there's more
The
than
eyes.
just...
There was
Yeah.
a lot of blinking in this movie.
There's more than just one thing moving at a time. And so being able to track and keep track of everything that's moving and not forget that you are moving a piece of hair. You know, because then when you look back on it, the hair starts to move and then just stops for the rest of the scene. Like, that would be odd. I want to know how they tracked all of that. How did they keep track of everything that was moving? Like, especially when you're done for the day, you've got, you know, you did like you got 6 frames for that day. And then you go home, you go to sleep, you come back the next day and you're like, oh shit, where was I? You know, it's like, you have to know every little detail. So I want to know if there's some kind of program, like a computer program, do they animate it ahead of time so that they know all of the different spots for what they're tracking? I would be interested in knowing all of that.
Or you could just be like Art Clokey and not care at all.
Well, any final thoughts before we end the stream?
Well, we got to rate it.
Yeah, we got to rate it. So I'm going to give Kubo an A- because even though I like the two sister villains, I thought the grandfather villain just wasn't impactful enough for me. I didn't feel as much of an emotional connection when he was fighting the grandfather as much as when they were battling the sisters. But I love all the other characters. I like the original story, even though it's a very much of a Wizard of Oz kind of blanket. It's a lot different other than that. So I'm going to give it an A-. What do you think, Matt?
I'm definitely giving this movie an A+. It is my favorite movie of this decade. It's visually. I will say this: in the first 2 to 3 minutes of seeing this movie in theaters, I already knew I was going to love this movie because no movie has captivated me the way it has in theaters. I've never seen a movie this different, this unique. I guess probably Shape of Water was one of those movies, but it wasn't always like that, like how this movie was. In a lot of ways, this was, how I envisioned some people were with Star Wars, because every shot I was like, how the hell did they do this? How the hell did they do this?
Right.
And I'm completely invested in the story. It's violent, which is enjoyable for both myself and the fact that it does take itself seriously. It is a kid's movie, but at the same time, it does understand there are risks, there are, real stakes there. And I think they take an old story and put a new twist on, which a lot of filmmakers don't do now or don't try to do. And I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, and the animation style was very important for the story. And I think if it was not a stop animation, it wouldn't have the same effect.
Yeah.
What about you, Ian?
I think I'm going to give it like an 8.9. I really enjoyed the performances. I really liked the artistry and stuff in the film. I liked the fairy tale elements, the mythic elements. And I really enjoyed it. It's just probably not like my favorite animated movie or anything. But I'd like to watch it again sometime. Maybe like on the Blu-ray instead of on Netflix, so you can get a little bit more detail in the visuals and stuff. But yeah, I really liked it.
So we seem to be all around the same spot, but again, we're at just 3 different levels, just not as extreme as the last one.
I will say, people who are listening or watching probably think, what the hell? Matt either is like A+
or F.
D or F. Like, that's my range.
Well, they know it's by violence level.
What did you give Tomb Raider?
He gave it an F or a.
Yeah, I gave that an F.
Oh, that's right.
I gave Judge Dredd like a D or D-. I gave Godzilla Monster Planet like a C+ maybe, and I gave Black Cauldron like a C- or a C.
You gave Aliens a pretty high score too.
I gave Aliens an A+.
You're pretty hot or cold with these movies.
Well, granted,
it's all about the violence level.
I mean, also look at the other movies that we've done, like Tomb Raider. Oh hell no! If I gave that a C, I'm doing this movie or Aliens. No. Movie deserves to never be talked about again, and it's a shame that Alicia Vikander was in that movie. What are you doing?
All right, so ignoring Matt. Next week we're gonna be doing.
Don't watch it.
Next week we're gonna be doing Ready Player One, which I'm excited. It comes out this weekend, so next week we should be watching that one. I'm not sure.
New director Steven Spielberg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got Ready Player One. The week after that, we got a movie none of us have seen. That's an older movie, and probably none of you have seen. So you could watch the review and have no idea what we're talking about. We are talking about Akira Kurosawa's Ron.
Yeah,
it's pretty violent, so Matt's probably gonna like it.
Oh, I'm So
So if
excited.
you're betting on,
I've
Matt's
seen
like-
one action sequence, and I was like, this looks like a high A for me.
So we don't know exactly when we will stream. It's either going to be like Wednesday or Thursday. We try to do it around the middle or the end of the week, depending on our schedules. But
I will say, are we going to do A Quiet Place? Movie's getting a lot of hype. That comes out April 6th. We want to do that after Ron?
I don't know. We'll have to talk about that. We'll see what else is going on. It depends on what's coming out, what I have to do, what do I have to see to review for my other channels and stuff. But follow us on the social medias. I've got Matt's stuff down below and my stuff as well. So follow us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all the good stuff. Also, stay tuned for other things coming out. We've got other stuff coming out. So
Get ready for Ready Player One.
exactly. So like, share, and subscribe, guys. Check us out on YouTube. Make sure to follow us on Twitch. And we will see you next week. Bye. Quick promotion, everybody. I'm having fun using the Stardust app, which allows you to make up to a 30-second reaction to movies and TV shows. And I'd love to see your reactions and put them in my videos. If you're interested in that, download the Stardust app. I've got a link to it in the description below. And make sure to follow Koricon. And whenever you make a reaction, make sure that you tag Koricon so that I get notified and can see it. Whenever I make a reaction video or a movie review and I see your video, I will take clips from it and put them in my video. If you're a YouTuber, make sure to put your YouTube channel name on your reaction if you want free promotion. And if you're a fan of my channel and just want to be in there, great. So tag me on your reactions.